everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to the Managrind tournament recap, talking about the top decks, talking about the top cards, and state of the metagame for this week's tournaments. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Top 4 for NA we had in first place is Juan, and second place Mitt JDW. We'll just call them Mitt. And then tied for third we had Spaj and Azure. So, on to Juan, who's playing Druid Watchers is what I'm calling it, because someone needs to give this deck a name at some point. Now, the deck I'm talking about is a Druid beatdown deck that revolves more around the Watcher engine, Ancient Watchers, Defender of Argus, Sunfear Protector, Keeper of the Grove, where you can silence them or give them taunt and just make them into really big barriers. And previous people were just calling it Dark's deck because Dark 1X came up with it. And it had a little bit of a name in Shields Up, and the Warlock one was called Handlock, and it's weird, so I'm just going to call it Watchers. But anyway, onto the actual deck. So as I said, we have the core of Ancient Watcher, along with Defender of Argus, Sunfear Protector, and Keeper of the Grove, giving him 6 ways of making them sort of viable creatures. We also have Druid Claw and Harvest Golem and Azure Drake to hold down the early mid game, especially if you innervate out a Druid Claw. It's a really big threat early game. We also have the obligatory Ancient of Lures to draw further into your deck, and also to provide a little healing against some of these really aggressive Hunter decks. We have the Black Knight to deal with the Mirror Match and any other Ancient Watchers or Ancient of Wars whenever they do pop up, or even Druidal Claws from other Druids especially. Then we have Nat Pagal and Blood Mage for early draw power. Cairn as just one of the best mid-game minions in the entire game. Tinkmaster to deal with any big threats you can't deal with as a Druid, because they have serious issues dealing with things like Ysera. And lastly, for the minions, we have Cenarius, who is the late game legendary in this particular situation. It's either Cenarius, Ysera, or Ragnaros. Passing up on the Ragnaros because he is a big game hunter target, and there aren't any others in this deck, so he always gets big game hunted, and Ysera can be a little slow at times. Now, for the actual spells, we got the standard Double Wrath, Double Swipe, Double Innervate, along with the 1 Force of Nature Savage roll for that 14 damage combo. So now, on to second place, we had Mitt, playing Miracle Rogue, a deck that sometimes comes up, and it's very interesting. So, the deck was playing a lot of spells, very few minions. So for the actual minions, we have its own little engine here. We have Nat Pagal, along with Bloodmage Thalnos for the draw power, as I said in the last deck. We also have Leroy Jenkins to provide the deck a little bit more reach. SI7, because it's just that good of a card, and it's obligatory in all these rogue decks. One of Acolyte Pain, because you can actually shiv your own Acolyte and draw 2 cards, for example, if you have a Gadgetzan of 3 cards. Speaking of Gadgetzan, he's the best draw engine possible for this kind of deck with this many low-cost spells. And lastly, we have Edwin Van Cleef. And as I said before, with this many low-cost spells, he gets really, really large. So, anyway, talking about those spells, we've got 2 Preparation, 0 cost, makes all your other stuff 0 cost, works with Gadgetzan, so it's not card disadvantage. We have Blade Flurry, which works really well with the double Deadly Poison and also the 1 of Assassin's Blade. We then have 2 Cold Blood to work with Leroy Jenkins, 1 Conceal, which helps out a lot with these Gadgetzans and Edwin Van Cleefs, double Eviscerate for direct. Shadow Steps work really well with Leroy, provide their own sort of OTK combo. Phantom Knives, Shiv, basic removal along with Backstab, and Saps to get over large taunts. Assassin's Blade, as I said earlier, works really well with Blade Flurry. Also with Deadly Poison, it turns into a 20 damage weapon, which is incredible. Now, on to third/fourth, we had Spaj playing Shaman midrange. Now, Spaj is known for his Shaman midrange. He's been around for a long time in the Hearthstone community, and he's still playing Shaman midrange, and he's still making it work. And this is what was very interesting for me. This Shaman deck is not playing the OTK thing. It's playing 1 Doomhammer. It's not playing things like Alakir. It's not playing Leroy, things like that. It's not playing those. It's not focused on the OTK combo, although Doomhammer Rockbiter can win a game every so often. This is a much slower tempo deck in some respects, and is much more akin to the old sort of Shaman midrange decks from even pre-beta, back when we used to play on the Cockatree Simulator. But anyway, onto the minions. We've got standard Bloodmage Thalnos, Cairn, Nat Pagal in these midrange decks. Nat Pagal, Bloodmage draws, Cairn's just solid in the mid game. Then we have Tinkmaster, because along with Hex, that's 3 different types of hexes, so to speak. Big Game Hunter to deal with Ragnaros. Faceless Manipulator works really well with Big Game Hunter and Tinkmaster. Copy it, kill it. Then we have Azure Drake, Gadget Zan, Stampeding Kodo, Violet Teacher, Chillwind, and Fire Elemental. Huge mid-game potential in this deck. Now, Azure Drake and Gadget Zan function as the entire draw engine. You don't need anything else besides that. Nat Pagel and Blood Mage are here just because they're good, but Azure Drake and Gadget Zan are just incredible, especially when you're playing a lot of low-cost spells. Speaking of low-cost spells, Violet Teacher will often get a lot of triggers out, and it's a 3/5. Very underestimated card, was very powerful in previous metagames because of how difficult it is to kill. Same thing with Senjin. Then we have Chillwind Yeti, who's just a value Yeti and does a lot of damage on his own, very difficult to kill. Fire Elemental, one of the best 6-drops in the game, and the tech Stampeding Kodo, which deals with things like Harvest Golem, primarily. Not much else needs to be said, it deals with Harvest Golem. That's why it's in the deck. Now, as far as spells goes, we've got Feral Spirit, we have 2 Lightning Storms, we've got the Earthshock, Lightning Bolt, Hex, Rockbiter, pretty standard on the spells, but they all synergize well with the draw engine from this deck. Azure Drake powers up Lightning Bolt, Earthshock, and Lightning Storm. Gadget Zan benefits hugely off the Lightning Storms, Feral Spirits, pretty much all the spells. They're all 3 and below. Primarily the Earthshock, Lightning Bolt, Rockbiters, obviously, because they are incredibly low on the mana cost. But overload spells work very, very well with Gadget Zan. And lastly, we have the one-off Doomhammer, which helps out a lot with the Rockbiter weapons to sort of provide that little bit of an OTK combo for whenever he actually needs it. Now, onto the last NA deck, we have Warlock Watchers, also called Handlock by some people, which, yeah, if anyone's been keeping up on my opinions on that name, you will know that I think it is rather silly. But anyway, moving on to the actual deck. This is a deck we haven't seen in a long time, being the Warlock Watcher deck, as I'm starting to call it now. And what it does is it plays Ancient Watchers along with Defender of Argus, Sunfury Protectors, kind of like we saw in the Druid deck, but this also plays 4 Giants, Twilight Drakes, massive taunts. That is the entire thing behind the deck. Massive taunts on the board, along with playing a couple of win conditions. So we've got the 4 Giants to provide huge amounts of pressure early game. We have the Twilight Drakes, which are just very difficult to deal with, and if you put taunt on them, they just don't die to big game hunters. You don't want to Tink Monster them, but sometimes you have to. Then we have Earthenring Farseers to keep you alive through your life taps. Leroy Jenkins to provide a little bit of reach. Blood Mage because he's good. And Tink Master because he's obligatory. He's just a really powerful card, deals with pretty much anything you can. Like anything you can't kill, flat out he deals with. Can't kill that Ragnaros, Tink Master, oh no, it's a 5/5, it's still not a Ragnaros. And lastly, for the minions, we've got 2 win conditions, Alexstrasza and Lord Jaraxxus. Now, these both function as health resets, which is what they'll do a lot. Alexstrasza can burst, but it's not really necessary in a deck with 4 giants. So these are, most of the time, health resets, and are very, very good on the healing. Now, for the actual spells, we've got the 1 Shadow Flame, because of giants, they're incredible. 2 Siphon Souls for the healing, and you really need the hard removal. Mortal Coil to deal with things like Harvest Golem tokens, and just to finish anything off, and also Blood Mage, the 2 damage. Mortal Coil can do a lot of work. Soulfire, sometimes they don't play 2, because you can actually discard a lot of crucial cards with Soulfire, but the effect is so powerful that this particular version is playing the full 2 copies. Because 4 damage for 0 is not to be underestimated, and it's absolutely incredible. And lastly, we've got 2 Hellfires for board wipe, and the 2 Shadow Bolts for just good single target removal. Also works really well with Blood Mage to kill things like Chillwind Yeti. Anyway, on to top 2 from EU, but it's first and third. Anyway, so this is a bit of a weird situation. Basically, we didn't get the second and fourth place deck lists. So I'm going off what we have, which is first and third, which in first we had Wumpy from Team Denial, and in third place we had Pablo. So anyway, on to Wumpy. Now, Wumpy was also playing Druid Watchers. Now, the deck list is very, very similar, although in this particular version it's 1 Defender of Argus. It's also playing a singular Azure Drake, and also the Ragnaros. Now that's the big difference, is that Ragnaros. The Ragnaros is chosen over the Cenarius in this version because it's less focused on safeguarding and more focused on being super aggressive. Ragnaros is really, really powerful from his effect, but he is very vulnerable to Big Game Hunter, and that's the problem with the card. He's still an 8 damage with charge, effectively. He has pseudo charge. You play him, he does damage, although you can't direct it. But it's still really powerful and can sometimes win games, and that's why he's in the deck. The rest of the deck pretty much the same as the one that won the NA. Just go back to there if you want my opinions on this. Now, onto the sort of obligatory deck that shows up every so often. There's always one warrior legendary deck that squeezes its way into one of the top 4s every single week, and it's very interesting to see that stuff come up. We had Pablo playing it this week. Now, Pablo's version is a warrior legendary enrage sort of archetype. Now, a lot of people are calling it legendary enrage as sort of its own separate deck list, but this has become the only warrior legendary deck, so people just started calling it warrior legendaries again. But anyway, the actual deck has 3 different parts to it: control, legendary win conditions, and the enrage engine. Now, the enrage engine is made up of armor smiths along with frothing berserkers and acolytes, and the cruel taskmasters and whirlwind. Now, what this enables you to do is power out an early threat in frothing berserker, get some defense from the armor smith, and draw cards with the acolyte. It gives you a little engine to use at the beginning of the game to set up your mid to late game, which is when the deck really shines. Very powerful engine, supported in this case with one of Big Game Hunter, because Warrior has a little bit of problems with that hard removal, only playing the 1 execute in this one because it's too situational sometimes to play 2. Arathi Weaponsmith, and also the Defender of Argus to bolster his mid game. Now, onto the actual win conditions, so to speak. And Nat Pagel's also going to come up here because Nat Pagel's obligatory. But anyway, so for the actual win conditions, we have 3. We've got Cairn, who's just incredibly solid, and sometimes they can't deal with him and he just does a lot of damage. Ragnaros and Ysera. Ragnaros and Ysera are, by definition, win conditions. If they're not dealt with within a couple of turns, they win the game, and that is why they're so powerful. This version's a little lighter on the win conditions. It's not playing sort of Deathwing or Baron Geddon or Alexstrasza, things like that. Still playing the Ragnaros and the Ysera. Now, Tinkmaster and Black Knight show up as usual for the hard removal. So, anyway, onto the actual spells. We've got the 1-off Brawl after your Enrage engine is sort of overpowered and you're just trying to set up for late game, helps out with clearing out the board. The Shield Slam, Shield Block combo for that huge amount of damage on very, very low amount of mana. Slams to draw through your deck a little bit and set up some things like Executes, and the Whirlwinds, which help your side of the board by powering it up while weakening his side of the board. And lastly, we have the 2 Fiery War Axes for early removal or late game burst. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or just want to chat, I guess, put it in the comment section below. If you want to talk to any of us at Managrind, come on to the actual Teamspeak. I'll put the information in the description below. But anyway, as for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.